Evening, everyone. I want to start off by saying something that Thomas Paine said over 200 years ago as it related to the American Revolution. And his comments were during the Revolution that was difficult to see in the beginning is obvious at the end, and that time will have more converts than reason. I'm saying those words because how true they were over 200 years ago, and they really apply to Youngstown today. If you look back in our history in terms of where we were at 30 years ago and where we're at today, the transformation is pretty amazing. I did start my career in 1980 with the city of Youngstown. At that time, we had the destruction of the heavy metals industry in the area. We lost 29,000 manufacturing jobs. We lost $1 billion in payroll. We led the nation in unemployment, domestic violence, per capita murder rates. You name the bad categories, we were at the top of the pile. We had a choice back 25 years ago or 30 years ago to go in one direction or another. A lot of cities chose to go in a different direction than Youngstown. Youngstown made a conscientious effort that we were going to lift ourselves up by our own bootstraps and change the world as it related to the city of Youngstown. We as a city became heavily involved in acquiring all of our former brownfield sites. We bought the U.S. Steel site, we bought the old Sheet and Tube site, we bought the Republic Steel site, we bought the property along Poland Avenue, and we proceeded to turn all of those former brownfield sites into economic development oases for the city of Youngstown. Over a period of the last 20, 25 years, we've created in excess of 7,000 jobs on those sites, and we have brought in about $3.5 billion of new investment. One of the basic economic formulas that exist is that people leave a community because they don't have jobs, they don't have hope. The reason that you get jobs and hope is because people invest money. We are a capitalist society. That's what America is. That's how the structure of our laws are, our Constitution is, that's why we have corporations. So being a for-profit capitalist society as a whole, that investment drives the success of an economy. So you need for people to invest in plant, equipment, training, resources, people, all the things that make a community work in America. If you look back 30 years ago, our problems were a direct result of a lack of investment taking place in Youngstown. So we as a community said, we're going to differentiate ourselves. We bought our brownfield sites. We put together an economic development program that was second to none. We gave property away for free, we extended utility lines for free, we did tax abatements, we did environmental warranties, we did site development grants. And today, because of all the development that is taking place in the city of Youngstown, approximately 50% of our general fund revenue comes from projects that we as a city have done. Not only this current city council supporting it, prior city councils, not only this current mayor, but prior mayors. So when we try to, let's say, re-engineer it, if we looked at it and said we didn't have the economic development that took place that we as a city have chose to do, our general fund budget would be about 45 to 50% less than it is. Almost in excess of 80% of our general fund dollars go into police and fire services. So in effect, you would have a police department that would have probably 40 to 50% less police officers, and you would have a fire department that would have 40 to 50% less firemen out there. And there's communities that have gone in that direction. The East St. Louis's of the world, East Cleveland. There's a lot of communities out there that just haven't been able to make the transition. If you look at a couple of just local anecdotes, we have chose to do certain things to develop our brownfield sites in our areas that even our neighbors have not chose to do. If you go down to Poland Avenue and you start at the borderline of Youngstown and where Youngstown and Campbell hook up, the boundary line there. We have Weatherford International, XL Aluminum, Cedar Street Steel, Covelli Center. Then you hook up into the Ohio Works site where you have VAM site, Industrial Waste Control Systems, IGS, many smaller companies. Then you have the Valoric site. You go to our Salt Springs Road site. We have 26 projects that we did in a period of 4 years at Salt Springs Road. 26 projects because it's an ideal logistics location. You go across the street from the Salt Springs Road site. You have an Austintown site. There's 100 and some acres on that site right across the street with no economic development. And actually, if you go drive back in there, it looks like a mini Appalachia site because there's abandoned properties, it's just dysfunctional. If you go to the Campbell border, all of you have heard about the corridor of opportunity that exists. Corridor of opportunity is 1,200 acres that sits on the Youngstown-Campbell border, but it's completely controlled, not completely, but the majority of that property, 90%, 95% plus of that property, sits in Campbell and Struthers. There is no corridor of opportunity over the last 30 years plus. That property was vacated 30 years ago, but there is no economic development there. It has been a corridor of non-opportunity because we have managed to fill up, Youngstown has managed to fill up our industrial corridor where all of our mills sat on those brownfield sites. In the process, we were successful at winning the National Conference of Mayors Brownfield Redevelopment Award for best practices. We also were awarded the SBA's Small Business Development Leadership Award as a city. We have managed to do all those things, the city of Youngstown has, in those areas where our partners have not been successful. So I would argue that if that 1,200 acre site was developed, the corridor of opportunity, they should have another, probably $400 or $500 million of projects there and another couple thousand jobs. It hasn't happened over 30 years. But the things that we have done as a city, the things that we have been criticized for as a city, things such as tax abatement. And I'm going to editorialize for 1 minute on tax abatements only because I think our city council takes a bad rap on tax abatements when they give tax abatements. A tax abatement, city council has the authority to give a 75% tax abatement through a legislative process. A tax abatement only occurs on a new investment. If somebody doesn't spend the money, they don't get the abatement. When they spend the money, they still have to pay 25% of what they would have paid. So they are giving something away. Economics refer to it as a foregone opportunity cost. Maybe they could have gotten the 100%. But you know what? If we go and ask for the 100%, the company goes somewhere else. We're all in a competitive environment trying to bring jobs to Youngstown. Jobs solve a lot of problems. So when we do provide the tax abatement to that industry coming in, if you look at the revenue stream in terms of what that company pays to the school board over a 30-year period and what they pay to the city of Youngstown, they pay at least double, maybe 3 times more to the schools than they do to the city. I could easily make the quantitative mathematical argument that says tax abatements should be given by the school board because they are getting the lion's share of the benefit from those tax abatements over a period of time, because the taxes that they pay over a 30 or 40 year period is much greater than the city income tax that they pay. With those things said, we do a lot of economic development and we don't try to discriminate against any industry. We say the prejudice we have is green. If people can come in and pay for what they want to do, we love the projects. If I sat here and told you 25 years ago that the people that made an iPhone would have a greater capitalization than General Motors, I don't think anyone in this room would believe me. Or that General Motors would go bankrupt during that period. But those are the way things happen. So when companies like VXI to come to Youngstown and say, we want to start a project with 120 people and put them in the Farmore Center, which by the way, the city bought because we were going to shutter and vacate the building, and I applaud our city council for supporting that project, which they came in with 100 jobs. Now they have an excess of 1,100 jobs at that facility. But we're doing those things because we want to change the world. We want to change the way things are happening out here to bring that investment to Youngstown, to bring back the glory and pride that was once here as a city. But the only way you get there is by encouraging the investment world to look at Youngstown and say, we're going to spend money here versus someplace else. We're going to give our kids opportunities to work here versus somewhere else. So when we look at all those type of things, it excites us because of what we're accomplishing. If you look at what we got going on downtown right now, you've got a couple of housing projects in excess of $10, $15 million at the university. We've got a new hotel. We got the amphitheater project. We got the chill can project going on. We're in conversations with a couple of other larger companies. I could tell you the investments are in excess of $25 million that we're talking to folks about doing larger projects in Youngstown right now. We have a track record of doing that. We have a history of doing that, and we're going to continue to do that. You know, another issue that I could just talk about for a minute is the right of the city of Youngstown to monitorize its water system. You know, back in 1929 or 28, city of Youngstown made a decision to spend 80% of the money that it took to build the MVSD water purification. They went out and they bought Meander Lake. Now's partnered with it. I think Now's put 19% of the money in, and maybe Weathersfield 1% or something. And we built a system out there that provides some of the purest water and cleanest water in the world. Youngstown residents are selling that water to various suburban users at a significant rate over what the Youngstown users pay. Youngstown has the right, the legal authority to do that and to monitorize the system that they own. Youngstown owns that system. Somebody wants to complain because they have to pay a higher rate, a Boardman or Austintown or a Canfield for that matter. They have the right to come in and negotiate. When they come and negotiate, we say we want part of your income tax for giving you a lower water rate. They say no thanks and they walk out. Then we have the right to set the water rates where we so desire. Supreme Court law generally says we can charge up to 200% more than what we charge our own residents for that. That's kind of where it's litigated at. So from my perspective, the thought that we should not monitorize that system and provide that economic benefit to our own citizens is just not for real. We need to get what we can out of what we own, and it's that simple. People have the right to come in and negotiate. They have chosen not to, but they have that right. So, but anyway, I want to also say that not only being excited about a bunch of other things that are going on here, and I don't want to take away the steam from Harry or anybody else that's going to talk here, but we have some wonderful programs. We just have some fantastic programs that we have implemented in the last a couple of years. We have a great demolition program, which Abigail Bennison's going to talk about. And we think we have a way to solve the demolition problem in Youngstown. You know, 10 years ago, but for what the city council did, there was no vision in sight as to solve that problem. She's going to tell you how we're solving that problem, and we are going to solve that problem. We also have a nuisance abatement program in place that people are going to talk about. I sit on a special assessments board, and once a Wednesday, everybody comes in and complains about cutting their grass. But you know what? About 75% of the people walk out there and say, thank you for making people cut their grass, or thank you for getting out there and cutting that grass because my neighborhood looks completely different. So we put that program in place, we're going to continue to put that program in place, and we're not going to stand by and just let things happen the wrong way in these neighborhoods. We put in a new trash program. We took bids on privatization of trash. Trash came in significantly higher, so we decided we're going to do it ourselves and save $1 million a year. That $1 million is going into the neighborhoods. It's going into cleaning up neighborhoods that would have went to a third-party BFI or a waste management or somebody like that, but it's coming into the city coffers. Then we have just a brand new program, which I'm hoping that Ian could talk about a little bit, about the Live Youngstown program. We're actually offsetting some costs for folks to buy a home in Youngstown, up to, I believe it's a $20,000 grant, which now makes the home bankable. We've got a bunch of banks going to participate in the program. We've got a beta test site. We've done a few of these already, and it's been outstanding, the reception on these, and we're cranking this thing up. We have to do it wholesale, just like we did economic development. You can't do economic development in these programs when you have so much need out there on a small scale. So we have asked our city council, and our mayor have said, we need to do this in a way that it changes the town, because a little bit is just fanfare. It's just a little bit of, oh, okay, we're trying. It's somebody patting somebody in the back without real change. As I said earlier, the line about time converting more people than reason. We need people to see through this. We don't have a full-time public relations staff out there doing it. And it reminds me of a line I read in a book about, it was Harry Truman talking about, or MacArthur talking about Harry Truman. And Harry Truman sent him his fourth star, made him a 4-star general, and actually sent it out to Manila or somewhere where MacArthur was at. MacArthur sent back a memo to the president and said, "Mr. President, you can have your star back. Send me more soldiers." We have a battle we're fighting in Youngstown. We have to figure out ways to optimize how we spend money and how we do things. And the people that you see here, we have a great city council. They argue those points all the time. Nothing gets stamped that's going through the system. Everybody's arguing those points on a daily basis as to how we do this the right way, how we fine-tune stuff. So me as one person is pretty excited about it. And what I like to say is that if you think we can't do it or that we're misguided, you know what? Look over your shoulder. Don't look over your shoulder, because you're going to see us doing it. So with that, I'll turn it over to the next speaker. Thank you for your time.